Hey there, and welcome to your real estate rental evaluation template. I think renting is really fun, and it can seem easy because it's not a long-term commitment, but it is still a serious commitment and something that you should not take lightly. So this worksheet was created to make sure that you get the opportunity to weigh the facts, the numbers, and the fit just before you lock into anything. And just like the real estate evaluation purchase template, they're both kind of a mouthful, we are going to quantify your feelings here, except focusing on this being a rental opportunity, not a purchase opportunity. And essentially what that entails is that we are going to apply a numerical score to the features and all of the financials and see how this property performs against your desires and needs for this specific property as it's going to serve for this season of life for you. Let's go over our agenda for today. First, we're going to fill out all the property information. Then we are going to score the property features. After that, we'll take a look at the finances and score those as well. And this is going to give us our summary of scores board that is going to help you make a final decision on this property. And as a little bonus, you also have a real estate tour checklist that we'll briefly go over that you can take with you anytime that you go tour a property in person. If you take this exercise seriously, you can do this for every single rental property that you look at or tour. I would highly recommend you make sure that you tour. And this is great for you to log in your notes and then rate all of the features and finances so that whenever you're comparing properties, you can have a really clear indication of these are the properties that I really want to consider. And you know what? These just don't measure up. This tool is going to give you a really clear affirmation if it's the right fit and the numbers are just going to speak for themselves. Or if it's not the right fit, it's going to confirm that you really shouldn't get emotionally attached to it and should probably walk away. So here is the best way to use it. I want you to go grab your own rental property listing, wherever that may be, Zillow, apartments.com. There's a bunch of different places. Go grab one with good pictures and a lot of detail for the actual property itself. And we're going to use that to make this template come to life. And I mean, if you are actively looking at several listings, like I said, this is a great tool for you to compare those listings over time. But just start with one property as a great place to start. And really quick, just how you can evaluate multiple properties is just duplicate the tab over time, or you can just save a copy of this file and just redo the exercise time over time. So what the template does, it's essentially this evaluation tool to help you just think critically, compare your options, and really make a solid choice whenever it comes to deciding where you want to live, because it's important. You need to pick a space that, it feels like you, it's right for you financially, and it could be a home. And I want to cover something quick here. We are not going to talk about rental arbitrage opportunities in this video. What is that? Well, it's whenever you work out a deal with a landlord to rent a property for the monthly minimum that they require in a long-term contract. To say like you book a rental property for about a year, and then you work out a deal with the landlord to turn it around, furnish it, and market and list it for a short-term or a mid-term rental. And then the idea with this arbitrage opportunity is that you get to keep the profits. So you're paying the expense of the property. You're kind of taking on the risk of any other tenants coming into this property, but short and mid-term rentals are more profitable historically. So the idea is that you're getting to keep the profits off of the revenue you've made after you pay the landlord for that long-term contract. We're going to go into more about that in the investing mini course. That is not going to be something that we cover here. This is solely for those who are looking to rent a property to actually live in. If that's all you're looking for, you're in the right place. Now let's walk through the rental evaluation tab. In this sheet, anywhere that you see a white outline box, it's indicating that it's a required input from you. Just like the purchase evaluation template is set up, this one is set up very similarly. You have 4 key sections. You have your property information. This is where you're going to record all the basic facts about the home that you're evaluating. You have the property features, where you're going to score the features from 1 to 5, add any notes, and then add any questions that you might have for the agent who's helping you with potentially renting the property. Then you're going to scroll down and there's the property finances. So here we're going to calculate whether the property fits your budget, and we're going to simulate your expenses. And again, there's a rating system here for your finances. And then we're going to scroll back up, and over to the right, there's this summary of scores dashboard. This section is ideally going to give you a clear indication of the green light, yellow light, or red light for signing a lease for this property. We're going to walk through each of these sections alongside an example. So we're going to begin up top with the property information. This table captures just the quick reference facts for the rental and your lease details. For your own property that you gathered, make sure to fill in the details all here. This is going to be your quick reference to make sure that you know which property you're talking about and looking at. Pause here if you need to fill in the fields, but you can see there's all the information in this fictional example. This was another property that I actually toured. So this is my exact information and details from that property that I toured that I plugged into this. Now, for security's sake, I've changed all the details, but it's an actual property that I evaluated. So we're going to see how this property actually performed whenever we look at all of the features and all the finances. And again, my house hunting process was the inspiration for all of these resources because I really needed this concrete way of evaluating whether it was a good play or not, instead of relying on my own feelings to tell me if it was a good play, because there's just a lot of emotion in real estate. So this takes the emotion out of the equation and actually gives you some really tangible, very clear signals to give you a path forward. That's why taking the time to score everything here is going to make such a difference, because you let the results speak for themselves. First up on your list of things to do for this real estate property evaluation template is to fill out all of your property information fields. This is going to be super helpful, again, if you are touring multiple properties, that you have all the information about that property at your fingertips right here at the top of the sheet. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to scroll over to the right and we're going to add our desires into the summary of scores dashboard. Add in your ideal annual expenses and furniture expenses that you'd like to pay in total in the desired column. These are just some critical details. You want to make sure those are in place. As we fill out the rest of the sheet, the summary of scores table is going to populate, but you need a baseline understanding of what your goal is for the summary of scores. And then it is going to conditionally format the rest of the numbers that come into this table based on your answers here. Log that, and then just a quick tip and a little bonus that we had discussed in the agenda. For the next section, use the real estate tour checklist for any in-person property tours that you conduct. You can print this out and you can write all of your notes on the fly so that you can come back and plug your notes into this sheet here for the property features and the property finances sections. So go take care of that, and I'll see you in the next section. We are going to look at the property features. Here, you really want to answer the question, what is the day-to-day living experience going to be like? In the unit, outside the unit, around the unit. This is where you're going to really get nitty-gritty on all of the details of the property to make sure that it's the right fit for you. Go ahead and rate the property from your listing as best that you can with the pictures that are available, from 1 to 5, 1 being poor, 5 being great, excellent, for every single feature in each one of these rows. And you want to just be honest with yourself. If it feels like it's a compromise, it's probably a compromise, and you should score it from 1 to 3. And if it feels like a win or it's better than you'd hope for, then give it a 4 or a 5. Just protect yourself from wishful thinking in this scenario. Be a little bit harsher than you might normally be. If the feature doesn't meet your needs, it doesn't meet your needs. See how the overall score averages out after the fact. But if you see a ton of red on the board, it's really going to help you pinpoint where you're compromising. So here, I want you to go row by row and add your own scores for your own specific property that you are evaluating. So in the example here, you can see after I went and added all of my ratings, it actually shook out pretty good. Up top, you'll see the average of your scores as well. For this example, it's a 4.1. And then I have all my notes there to help me reference why I scored it the way that I did, just so that I could come back, especially as I was evaluating multiple properties. It's something that I could be like, oh yes, I remember about this apartment. That's why I scored it that way. And then I have a couple questions in which I just marked that I needed to discuss some stuff with the agent. And then there's going to be a couple instances where some kind of feature on the property, it just doesn't apply to you. And that's fine. It's not something you care about, or it's not applicable or available for the property. You can just put N/A. It's not going to affect the score. So just go ahead and add that in, and it'll void that from the overall average score. So for me here, it didn't have a pool. I didn't really care about that. And then didn't have an irrigation system or sprinklers. Didn't really care about that either. And it was gravel, for the parking lot and everything anyway. And then there's a couple other NAs here as well. But you get the point. It helps you really understand how the property performs. So you want to make sure that you're considering every single thing according to what you're looking for in the property. All right. So I think this is a really fun one. Fill out all of the relevant details for the property features fields, and then rate all of those features that are present from a 1 to a 5, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest score. And if any of these fields don't apply to you, you can either just leave it blank or you can put NA. It will not affect the overall score average, but this is going to help you really see how this property shakes out whenever all of the features are quantified with your sentiments through this 1 through 5 rating in this sheet. As we discussed, this is where you are taking the emotions out of the equation, right? And you're getting down to concrete numbers that, yes, you are using your intuition, using your feelings, using your own rating system to quantify this, but you're going to see if it scores overall as a property that you could actually really consider to live in. And just don't forget that bonus, use that real estate tour checklist on any of your next in-person property tours. It's meant to make it super seamless for you to take your notes on the tour and transfer them into this sheet here. And then whenever you're ready, we're going to move on to the finance section. If we scroll down the page, we're going to see the property finances. It also has a score up top that it's going to average everything after you list out the rankings. This is really important because it isn't just the sticker price. Like there's also some other things that you need to consider in here, like the deposit and furnishing expenses. So you want to make sure that you're taking this seriously and you're taking your time to add all the figures in, and then you're scoring them according to what you're actually looking for in terms of paying for this property. And then there's going to be some gray boxes up top. Those are summarizing your annual expenses, your furniture expenses that you expect to pay, and then your annual income. This is important because it's going to help you indicate how much you're actually going to be spending on this property per month and how that shakes out against how much income you're bringing in. That's a really important ratio. We'll talk about it in just a second. So if we're looking at this example, you can see in the first chunk, it asks you for your listing terms, your tenant fees, any live-in fees that you have. So there's a couple here. If you have any other fees, you can just add new rows in each section and then tally them up and make sure that the formula up above just captures them in the overall expenses. For this property, it was a 12-month minimum, pretty good square footage. The rental payment was pretty decent, had the same deposit fee. So like I would not only have to pay the first month's rent, but I would also have to pay deposit fee down, and it was a refundable deposit as long as the apartment stayed mostly in good condition. I had to have renter's insurance. They had a parking fee. Don't have any pets. So I want a pet, but I don't have any right now. So it wasn't something that would be applicable for this. And then I just listed some of your typical live-in fees that you would pay monthly in terms of internet, utilities, etc. Adding that all up here, I marked down what those figures are, and then I rated them from 1 to 5. And then you'll see in the next table, there is the opportunity to shake out the furnishing expenses. So there's a bunch of just like examples given row by row. I think if you can estimate as much as you possibly can, this is good just for you to understand what you're going to need to furnish this place. And why this is here is some places come with furniture, or some people rent a place and then they're just like, we don't want to keep any of this. We don't want to bring it to our next place. So like you might get the previous renter's furniture, etc. But this allows you to just see how much you would need to pay in terms of furniture. So you list that out there, rank them from 1 to 5, and then you have your annual income. So this is any income that you make. You want to add this into this table here, and it's going to sum all of it up. This is going to be really important in terms of how much you are budgeting to pay for this apartment. Now, very similarly to the property feature section, go ahead and fill out the financial features fields. List all the details that you can find on this property or that you know of, and rate all of those features present from 1 to 5. Again, 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. If any of these features do not apply to you, you can put N/A in that field. It will not affect the overall average score. And then after you have finished this exercise, we are going to close out with reviewing your summary of scores table to make a final decision on this property. So good luck. You got this. Let's close this out. Let's go back up to the top, and we're going to look at the summary of scores so that I can explain why that's so important to consider for this exercise. We can see if we look at the summary of scores, we have the feature score and we have the finances score. Both of them are in the green. They are both between a 4 and a 5, which highlights them as like, okay, this is a pretty promising opportunity that you might want to consider leasing. So that's really good here. And then you have your calculations. They're pretty simple. They pull from the expenses, that little gray box that rolled up top, pulled from that. It pulled from the furniture expenses, which it looks like we're performing pretty well in terms of what we budgeted for. So that's great. And then your home expense ratio. You always want this to be 30% or below. Why? Because if you are paying 30% of your income towards your housing expenses, I mean, just think about it. That's a lot. That's like 1/3 of what you make approximately. Whenever it gets over that 1/3 mark, you're in dangerous territory because you not only need to cover these expenses, but you need gas, you need groceries, there's taxes to pay, there's all kinds of other bills that are maybe necessities that will come up. And that is all supposed to be allocated within 50% of your income if you're following any standard budget plan, where 50% is supposed to cover your needs and then the rest covers your wants, your investments, your savings, etc. So if 30% is being taken up for housing, that's only 20% left for all of those other needs that you have to live on every single month. So you really want to make sure that this is 30% or under. That's a great rule of thumb to live by. If you can get this way lower, even better. For this example, it's also shaking out that it is under 30%, which looks like all green lights. So this is a good opportunity to go for. Finally, let's make a decision. Review your summary of scores table and evaluate how the property scores against your goal or ideal figures, and then make this decision confidently to pursue or discard this property, knowing everything that you know and having trusted your instincts, scoring everything in the property features and in the finance features. You should have a very clear indication and a lot of green and red highlights to guide you to whether this is a good decision or not. You can now make this decision clearly and confidently, having the evidence to back it all up. Let's review what you got out of this exercise. First, you filled out your property information so that you can very clearly reference which property you are evaluating here. And then for that property, we looked at all of the property features and scored them, which created an average for you. And we compared that in the summary of scores table. We also did the same thing for the property finances, scored those. That average showed up also in the summary of scores table. And finally, you should now have a final decision on this property, whether it is one that you could continue to pursue or it's one that you should discard. And as a little bonus, we have that real estate tour checklist. So make sure that you take that with you for any rental properties or any real estate tours that you go on in the future. But you also have to consider too, just like, does this place feel like it could be a home? Does it feel like it could be the right place for you to spend your days waking up and coming back maybe from work or to just relax? And could you make it your own space? Could this be a space that for the season could serve you in the right way? That's just another important factor to consider. Even if it's all green, but you're feeling off about it, take that into consideration too. And then that is it. So my sincerest hope is that this makes it really clear for you to make a smarter and more confident choice in your rental property decision. But remember, this sheet, it's not just about numbers, it's making sure it's a healthy fit for your budget and your lifestyle. And there's always going to be some give and take where things don't maybe score ideally. Like, you're never going to find like the perfect property. But as much as you can say, okay, for the most part, this place, it's the right play, then this sheet will help you really make sure that you're quantifying that. And the cool thing about renting is that it's not forever. You can always change your mind if it ends up not being the right play that you want to continue on with down the line. So let this tool just help you take a breath, compare your options fairly, and then whenever you're ready, just to sign with clarity. You have got this. Thank you so much for being here today. I sincerely hope that this is something that makes you feel more enabled and empowered as you are approaching your home hunt. That wraps up this tutorial for the real estate renting evaluation template. Great work, and I will see you in the next lesson.